All right, so welcome everyone to this month's Lunch and Learn. This month we'll be going over multi-factor authentication and conditional access. We'll be going over what it is, why we need it, and we'll go through some examples of real life scenarios that we typically encounter and that we have encountered in the past, and give you guys a bit of a better understanding as to why it's so important and why so many businesses these days are progressing to using it as a default safety measure to secure accounts. So joining me this month is Robert Crane. He'll be going through the presentation. We'll start off though with a bit of news from Microsoft as per normal. And just a reminder that this meeting will be recorded. If anyone is unable to attend, you'll be able to watch it from our website at a later date. So without any further ado, Robert, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Campbell. So let me bring you up to speed with what's been happening in the Microsoft world since we last had our webinar. So Microsoft has had one of its large IT Pro events. It was all virtual. They're still wondering when it will go back to being in person, but it was a virtual event called Ignite. The event announces a lot of new technologies, many more than I could cover here. So the place to start, if you do want to deep dive into this, is to look at the book of news here. So you'll see that the idea here is you can go to this website and you can work your way through all the different announcements Microsoft have made, and then you can click to the link to dig in a bit deeper. Now, all the sessions for Ignite were recorded, so you can go to myignite.microsoft.com. You can go in and search for a particular topic if you are interested in that and view the recording. My advice to you is the best way to consume this sort of content is to look at the keynotes, the high-level overviews first, get a feel of where Microsoft is going, and then drill into any specifics after that. Now, a couple of things they announced, again, a lot of announcements around the team side of it and the SharePoint. One of the things that they are looking to basically enable is we're now bringing into shortcuts. So if you use your Windows Explorer, you'll notice that generally in the top left-hand corner, there is a shortcut option where you can pin folders that you access regularly. Well, they're going to bring the same thing here into your OneDrive. So when you go into your OneDrive shortly, you'll be able to pin regular connections to Teams or to other locations in the environment to make it as a quick reference for you to be able to go there as well. Now, the other option they've allowed us to do is the ability to organize the sharing experience. So they've improved that, made that a lot simpler to use. That you should see flowing through basically already. Inside the Teams environment, which we are in now, we've also got the ability to transcribe meetings. Now, that's super handy because once you start transcribing a meeting, it makes it all searchable. So what you can do is you can search for a particular term or conversation item, and then you can locate that and then also be taken to that point in the video. So that is enabled by default. You can disable it for a meeting, but again, those will be automatically transcribed for you and made available to you and your organization. And like I said, the great thing is that it's all going to be searchable in there. Now, some updates around lists. You'll see lists, which are, imagine a spreadsheet, rows and columns. They've now put this into a card format. So that's really good where you've got pictures or other graphics in there that you want to have a look at. So rather than just, imagine Excel lines and, rows and columns, we can now break these out into individual cards, drag and drop them and move them around. Really nice. We've also got some enhanced formatting here. So you'll see that if you do have rich text in any of your fields, you can go in and you can color that quickly and easily from drop-down menus, a bit like what we have, in Word and so on. Like I said, an improved sharing experience. If you have an Android device, there is an app coming shortly that will allow you to get to your lists directly. One of the really big positives of this is, I think, this last option here, which allows you to scan and upload documents, OCR them, whiteboards, all that sort of stuff. So I use that regularly. any bit of paper that comes into my environment, I would scan that and then upload that into my Microsoft 365 so that I have a searchable digital copy and I can get rid of that bit of paper straight away for me as well. One of the other items here is that the Outlook.com is being improved. We'll see a new interface to that, easier to find the information which is relevant to you. So if you go to your portal.office.com, your starting page, you'll see that improve with more relevant items for you to basically go in and view. So again, watch out for that coming shortly. So again, you'll get a link to this to go and have a look at yourself. You see there are lots and lots of announcements and enhancements to the product. This is one of the really good things about the Microsoft 365 product. It keeps improving over time with every month. Now, another new product or service Microsoft announced is something called Loop, and this is a bit different from what most people are probably familiar with. The idea is we can see in this graphic is that you can take an element you collaborate on. So imagine that you're working on a table in Excel. Typically, you would have to go to Excel to update that, or anybody else would have to work in Excel to update that. But with Loop, the concept of Loop, we can embed that into an email, into a document, into our SharePoint, into our Teams, and then when somebody updates it in Teams, it will update our Excel as well. So it's a different approach to collaboration. It's sort of this concept of collaboration anywhere. It will raise some challenges around compliance and where things change and how they change. Now, it's all tracked in the back end. You'll be able to see any changes and who made that. But again, it is a very different way from, opening a single file, working on it, closing it, and then allowing, somebody else to go in and have a look at that. So again, have a look at that. It will be coming again shortly. Now, probably the other one which most interested me was this concept of, Microsoft here is calling Mesh. But of those of you who are aware of Facebook renaming itself to the Meta, this is a similar sort of context of, virtual spaces and avatars and all of that in, a virtual world. And the Microsoft offering is aimed at business. Now, again, it does look a bit creepy here with no legs, but that's obviously to reduce the amount of computing that's required for people and their avatars there. So the idea will be is in this new hybrid environment, we're spending a lot of time in front of a camera. Not everybody wants to be on camera all the time, so this can be used, as a substitute to also, provide that capability of giving a human persona without you having to necessarily be on camera all the time. Now, again, coming in early 2022, it'll be very interesting to see how this is adopted inside the organization. But if you do follow technology, everything at the moment is turning into the metaverse, virtual lands, all of this sort of stuff is quite big at the moment. So obviously Microsoft is looking to bring that into the enterprise space as well. So we've got a couple of dedicated devices for Teams meetings. So if you have a room that you want to have a device on the wall to commence meetings, that is now available for you. You can have a space where you can walk in and put your phone on one of these screen devices, and it will allow you to do some basic stuff using a keyboard and a larger screen, but using the phone as the power source or the compute side of it. Lots of enhancements to PowerPoint as well. So you'll see here that as we scroll through this, there are plenty of options and enhancements that have come from Microsoft, both on the usability and also the administrative side as well, to mobile and also to the desktop as well. So encourage you to go through these links. There's far more than we can cover in the time period that we do have here. So again, go through and look at all the links that we will provide for you. Now, one of the other things that Microsoft did announce, which sort of links into the topic we want to cover off today, is around the Microsoft Authenticator. Now, the idea behind multi-factor authentication is that, when you go to withdraw money from an ATM, you need to put in effectively two forms of identification. Firstly, obviously the card, which is something you have, and then your PIN number, which is something you know. So that is an example of two-factor authentication. The idea with that is to, if somebody stole the card or managed to clone the card, then they wouldn't be able to get access to the account because they'd still need the PIN number. Now, this concept of multi-factor authentication is now being rolled out to just about everything you can think of: social media accounts, bank accounts, web access, all of this sort of stuff includes multi-factor authentication. Now, the reason for this is simply that if you look at the statistics, multi-factor authentication reduces the chance of compromise by 99.9%. So there is a slight price to pay in usability and convenience, but on the other side, I'd certainly be more comfortable taking the 99.9% assurity that my accounts are going to be protected. Now, all the news that you see these days in the press talking about breaches and compromises, when it's analysed, largely comes down to the fact that they didn't have multi-factor authentication enabled on those accounts. The attacker was able to guess the password or trick the user into giving up their password, and then was able to get into the account whenever and wherever they wanted to. So without a doubt, if your accounts or anything that you wish to protect doesn't have two-factor authentication, then those accounts are very, very much at risk. Now, Microsoft 365 gives us the capability to have that built into the system already, so there's no additional cost for it, and you can authenticate yourself in a number of different ways. So you can receive a phone message, you can receive an SMS, but the preferred option is to use the Microsoft Authenticator app, which is a downloadable app from all the app stores. And what will happen is as we see here, is that when you log in, you'll put in your login, you'll put in your password, and then what will happen is the system will then prompt you and say, okay, I've put a number on the screen. Please type that number into the app on your phone to verify that it really is you. So that means that the person who has logged in needs to match that number to what's on the authentication on the screen there. So again, making it even more secure. Now, one of the enhancements that has just been brought in is not only will it give you that number, but as you can see here, it will also let you know where that sign in is coming from. So if it's not where you expect, then you'll know that somebody else is trying to guess your password or trying to get into the account. So for example, last night I had a request on my phone when I got up that someone was trying to get in from the United States. So again, they're trying to guess my password to get into the environment. So the idea here is that's going to protect it. That's going to give you, that capability to prevent access to your environment. So it is an add-on to a password, and yes, it is a little bit extra to go through, but that can be minimized, and the trade-off is, far better security. Like I said, 99.9% improvement basically in security. Now, it is also possible, as you see here in this article, to use GPS coordinates. So if you want to get down to, that level of granularity, you can do that as well. Now, one of the other capabilities that was mentioned to provide protection is something called conditional access. And it's a bit of a techie term, but what it is we set up a policy to look at it and say, okay, now if the user does put in their login, put in their password, and put in their MFA, their multi-factor authentication, if that's all good, we can add an additional condition on there to say, well, are they logging in from Australia? Are they logging in from somewhere that we know? So not only can we verify that it is, the person has, 3 of the important details, but we can also verify they're coming from a country or a location that is expected. So when an attacker compromises an account, they're usually going to be trying to dial in from, outside Australia, Eastern Europe, China, those sort of places. So if they do manage to get all the other capabilities, then having this is yet another defense or another fence that they would have to jump here. So the idea with security is around this defense in depth strategy. So we need to have as many barriers as possible to prevent users or prevent attackers from getting into our systems. Now, they are all capable, they are all built into the Microsoft 365 environments, just a matter of enabling them, turning them on, and setting up the app, for example, on your mobile phone to allow you to go in and respond to those requests. Now, the good thing about this is when you have a look at it, it is a lot more secure than just a username and a password. The problem with passwords today is that people tend to put in very poor passwords. So, password 1, password 2, password 3. They don't make them secure enough. They don't remember them. They have trouble typing them. I have a lot of trouble typing passwords on mobile phones simply because my fingers are too fat. And that makes it difficult. But with this Authenticator capability, and simply having to put in a number, it's far easier and it's also much quicker to get access to the information you want and to ensure that's secure. Now, every time that you do log into the system and you do use these capabilities, that information will be communicated and recorded in your environment, so it can be verified, it can be checked by the admin to make sure that it is legitimate. So in summary here, the idea is that we want to make life as difficult as we can for any attacker or anybody who may have compromised accounts. And the way to do that is to enable what is known as multi-factor authentication. That is a familiar concept to people who, again, withdraw money from their banking accounts. They've typically got to put in, I said, the card and the PIN number to verify that it is them making that withdrawal. That is going to give you that 99.9% assurity that the account holder is actually the person who is making that request for money or access to the account. Now, the Microsoft Authenticator app is going to give you a couple of additional layers of protection. It's going to give you, like I said, the ability for you to be prompted with a number to enter on your phone, as well as giving you now the location where that request comes through. So you can say, well, hang on, I'm not at that location. Why is that happening? I need to go in and investigate that. Now, you'll notice that on this Authenticator app, when it happens, you'll see that you can also select the option to say, no, it's not me, so that if your account is at risk and you're concerned about it, it can be set up to be locked and have an investigation conducted around it. So you're able to not only acknowledge correct and appropriate requests, you're also able to acknowledge, a false attempt or somebody trying to get into your account that you may not be aware of. So all of that is built into the app. Now, that app, like I said, is available on iOS and Android platforms. Recommend that you load that down and configure it. You'll need to, set it up at the back end. So you'll need to, get that configured on the admin side. Very straightforward process to do, but there's no additional cost to actually buy or purchase this security item. And it's going to give you, like I said, a 99.9% improvement in your security arrangements there. So really, the takeaway is going to be, like I said, you want as much security as you can. Probably the best security for not only Microsoft accounts, but all of your accounts, including social media, is the requirement to have multi-factor authentication. The Microsoft app on your mobile device can handle the requests for not only Microsoft, but also, I use it for Amazon. I use it for a range of other items that I have. So it can accommodate, all of that information. It can back it up and restore it if you need to change devices. So super handy, makes it much easier. You've got your phone with you. You can use that to log on to all of these applications that are out there. The Microsoft integration with your Microsoft environment is going to give you those additional capabilities, which probably a lot of third parties don't provide. So if you haven't got multi-factor authentication on your environment, there is a huge risk because attackers sooner or later are going to try to guess passwords or trick you into giving up your passwords. But if you have multi-factor authentication, then it's going to give you that additional layer of protection to be secure, that they would need that as well. And then beyond that, we've got our conditional access, so we can actually lock down where successful attempts come. So a good example is I've set up my parents. They have a NBN connection. They are only able to log in to get to their emails from that one connection. So it means that if for some reason they give up their login and their password, then an attacker is not able to jump into that system because the attacker is not on that same connection that they are. So it really makes it much more secure for them. They don't see any of these security precautions in the background, but they are there protecting them to make sure that their identity and their details and information will not be compromised. So I think, like I said, there's a lot of benefit to be had there. Yes, security perhaps is a very technical thing and is, somewhat, more interest to computer people, but please make sure that you do understand that all of your information has value, whether it's Facebook, whether it's your email address, and attackers are trying their best to get in there. And really, if you only have, a login and a password, that's not a lot of defense these days. It's pretty easy for a lot of attackers to get in there. So again, adding multi-factor and then conditional access, which comes to the Microsoft 365, is really, I think, the way to go to make sure that you are providing as much protection as possible in the back end. And there might be a bit of technical setup to do that, but if you haven't got it, certainly go and request that you've got it to protect all information. If you're using the social media accounts, also look at how you can enable it on all your accounts as well. And you can manage all of that in your Authenticator app, which I said is available on basically every mobile platform that is out there. All right, so with that, I think that's probably all I really want to cover. I just want to see whether there are any questions out there. Maybe Campbell has some experience with some of the other customers they've worked with and the difference multi-factor authentication has made, and perhaps maybe the situation where people haven't had multi-factor authentication and they have been compromised. So I don't know if you have any experience to share on that, Campbell. You'll need to unmute yourself if you do have any of that. All right, so, okay, Campbell is not there at the moment. So, all right, so my experience is that, there's plenty of stories around of, people being tricked into giving their credentials, having bank account details and invoices changed, and then sent that and emailed through, and they've made payments to a false bank account and effectively lost all that money. So don't think it can't happen to you, and basically don't think that it's trivial, the amount of information, the value of information that you control, from your bank accounts to your emails to your business information. There's someone out there who is looking to get access to the information.
I have
Campbell,
sorted out. Yeah, I just sorted the microphone out. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, look, one of the questions that comes up quite a bit is a lot of people, I suppose, have a few accounts on their tenant that probably are inactive or stale, or they think that it doesn't have data on them, and they sometimes think that that's a reason not to have MFA. Do you want to maybe just go into why it's kind of necessary on any type of account, no matter if it's the director or a service account?
So the way I do it in demonstration, I said, look, give me your phone. So you give me your personal phone. You unlock your phone. And if you are uncomfortable with me giving your phone to a random stranger in the middle of the city, then there's information on there that has value, and you need to protect that information in some way, shape, or form. So again, you may not think it has value, but I can tell you that people have lost their information, had identity theft, had money taken out of their account, soon realize that it has value. So again, it's a really simple and straightforward process to set up. But like I said, in essence, if you are not prepared to unlock your phone and give it to a random person on the street, then that contains valuable information and should be protected with as much security as possible. And the same thing with your emails. You don't want others sending emails out on your behalf or pretending to be you and conducting business in a way that is not you. So again, I think that's a lot of the way it is. But again, look back to the bank account. Why have we got two-factor on bank accounts? Because there's money in there that we do have value. So all of your information does have value to someone. So my advice is, yes, certainly implement MFA as widely as you can.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think important to note that if someone were to get access to an account, it's not necessarily something you would identify immediately. Like these things can go unnoticed for quite a while, and if someone's got access into there and there's none of these security configurations in place, you know, they can be just watching the email correspondence for months, if not, you know, years at a time, and then use that to, you know, for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, so typically what we see is when an attacker gets access to a mailbox, they'll sit in there for 2 to 3 months collecting information, finding out who writes the checks, looking for invoices, the bank accounts, other passwords, you know, who authorizes payments. And then they'll typically strike, you know, on a Friday or before a long weekend, sending through details and getting payments. And then by Monday or Tuesday the following week, when it's discovered, it's too late. They've taken the money and disappeared. So unfortunately, in this digital age, it's all very simple to move information quickly. And my advice to you is if you have MFA, the attackers are going to go and look for easier targets. So at the end of the day, you want to make yourself as hard to kill as you can. And MFA is, you know, basically going to provide that in spades.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Robert. I think you've answered a lot of questions there and covered a lot. So, yeah, thank you everyone for joining this month's webinar. We will be sending out information about the following month, and we might be doing another draw and announcing that after this one concludes. So, thank you again, Robert, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks everyone for attending.